All right, go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody to this leadership meeting for Dix Park, another virtual Zoom meeting, story of our lives. Wanted to start just by letting you know I have to drop off at 9:30. Jim will take over. I have to be at the St. Aug's President's Service today. So I apologize for that, but we'll move on. So the first item, I guess, is any public comment.
All right. For those joining from the public, if you have a comment you'd like to make, please click the raise hand button on your Zoom. I can allow you to speak. Does not look like we have anyone, so.
Well, I'm really disappointed because there's one gentleman who shows up every single time.
And it does look like
It's okay.
All right. Kate, could you put the agenda up? Please share that.
yes. And just as a FYI, it looks like Jim is actually on the public side, so we're going to try to get his login so he joins on the panelist side.
I'll resend it right now.
Thank you.
There he is.
All right. Can everyone see the agenda screen? No?
Okay. All right. Since we had no one for public comment, we'll move on to our approval of minutes. I cannot see everybody. So if you want to make a motion to approve the minutes, please say aye. And
This is Corey Branch. Move for approval.
do we have a second?
David Smith, second.
Okay. All in favor? If you are opposed, just say no. Okay. I found that's an easier way to do this. All right. Now we have an update from our staff. First, Kate, who's going to be, are you managing this part of it?
Yes, so I'll take it from here and then pass it off to various staff members if that works.
Okay. I'm going to mute then and let you go to it.
Great, thank you. So it's great seeing everyone. Everyone can still see the agenda screen. Yes?
Yes.
Great. The first item we have on the project update is the budget request. You should have received the document from me in your agenda packet last week. As a reminder, per the adopted funding agreement, the city can request additional funding from the Conservancy to support the park. And this funding covers things like our planning operations, the early park improvements that we are going to discuss today, and programs and events. The process that was approved in the funding agreement is that upon approval of the Parks Director, so Oscar has reviewed this, I share the funding request to the Leadership Committee. The Leadership Committee reviews and discusses and then sends, if they approve, sends that approval to Sean with the Conservancy for review and discussion with his board. So I'm going to just bring up the Excel document and I will answer any questions you have about the funding request. But if not, I'd like for someone to suggest moving approval so that we can send this request to the Conservancy for consideration.
Kate, this is David. I move approval.
Carlton seconds.
If anybody is opposed, say nay. Okay, passes unanimously.
Great, thank you for that.
And thank you for being so responsive. It makes the meeting move along. Thank you.
I'm going to go back and share the PowerPoint again. I wanted to provide a few updates on some exciting news. One is, I think everyone has been familiar that we have been applying for a variety of grants from a number of different sources to evaluate the feasibility of the restoration of the Rocky Branch as envisioned in the master plan. And the point of this money is really to basically test out and see if we are able to accomplish the vision as described in the master plan, if it needs to be altered, to do site investigation, to think about a lot of the ongoing projects that are in this area, and to really evaluate the stream scenarios, including creating some cost estimates and getting an understanding of all that's going to be required on the permitting side to realize this vision. The grants also include money for outreach and engagement to the community, which is, I think, a really great part of them. And so as of today, we have been awarded 3 grants through 3 different funding agencies: the Department of Environmental Quality, the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, and then the Conservancy on behalf of the city applied for a grant through the Duke Energy Foundation, and we've been awarded all 3. We also anticipate a 4th notice later this week. So we're very excited about all of the work to support the grant, or to support the creek work. So does anyone have any questions about where we are with the grants to support the creek work?
That's just good news and great work.
I was going to say the same, Kate. Really good news.
It also, I think, demonstrates how I think this project meets so many other goals of both state agencies and obviously the city's goals of enhancing the Rocky Branch. So good stuff. Joey, are you online and would you like to take it from here? Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you, I don't think. No sound. So Joey Vasca manages all of our programs and events at the park. I think he's gonna try now. Nope.
Still can't hear you. Joey,
So
maybe,
what I'm gonna do, Joey, if you don't mind, is kind of run through the early park improvements, and you can Vanna maybe in the background. So Joey has been working diligently with our Parks Maintenance Department on a series of early park improvements to really improve the visitor's experience through new park amenities. This is something that we've been working with the Conservancy, and actually there was a lot of support from the Conservancy board to do some things in the park while we're working to get all of the phase projects underway. And I think this is going to do some really exciting things to make the experience better for visitors within the next couple of months. And the whole idea is, let's do something, let's do it quickly, let's create some environments at the park that bring more people out. So we're very excited about that. So the first round, what we're calling phase 1 of our park improvements, are 2 rooms. The first, they're in areas. The first is called the Magnolia Room. It's where the old gazebo is next to the sunflower field today. And in the next couple of months, this area will be transformed with a refurbished gazebo, picnic tables, a shade structure, sway benches, which are just like swinging benches, grills, trash can, water fountain, really to create this like energy where people can come, have a celebration, have a birthday party, have a family reunion, and really enjoy the space. The cool thing with this one is that if you're on one of those swings and we plant flowers next year, you're going to be able to swing out and see the sunflowers. So that's a little fun part with the Magnolia Room. And we call it that because there are all of these great magnolia trees around it. The second larger improvement is what we're calling the Oak Room in front of the old daycare building. This is where we're going to create a butterfly garden, install another piece of play equipment, another shade structure, benches, picnic tables, grills, trash cans. Both of these will have ADA accessible routes to them. So it's really this opportunity to create these amenity spaces in the park. In addition, in the big field, we'll be doing a number of benches, both stationary and swing-like. And we will be doing a hammock grove over in the Pine Grove line along the big field. Park wide, we're also going to be adding some bike racks and additional trash cans. So just some additional amenities to improve the park visitor experience. Joey, can we hear you again? Did I miss
Can you hear me
anything?
now?
Oh, we can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. So you did a wonderful job covering that information. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll hand it off to Joey to talk about some of our upcoming events.
Hey, real quick before we leave the big field,
Yes.
Corey, questions. How will the benches, the sway benches, impact any events on the big field?
They
Heather,
really won't.
go ahead.
Sorry. They really won't. They're going to be more between the trees. So they won't be necessarily in the green spaces on the big field. Because we were thinking about, that those iconic trees kind of on the edge of the big field and being able to kind of sit under those and be on a bench and sway and just being able to look out over the big field, we thought would be really picturesque and really a nice kind of addition to the space. So they won't impact events.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other
This is
questions
George.
about early park?
Yeah, this is George. I have a question. Why only one water fountain and not in all three places?
So go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Kate. So there will be a water fountain both at the Oak Room and at the Magnolia Room. So there'll be one water fountain per location.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Kate,
Sir,
Kate, this is Jim.
good morning.
I think what would really help us, and you're not going to be surprised when I bring this up, is we need some trails and paths. It's hard when you go out there to know how to, walk a mile or something, but if we could have some temporary trails and that kind of stuff that are marked, I think it would really help. And maybe Matt could help us with where to do that. I don't know, but the sooner the better, I think.
I agree. This is Jennifer. Now that it's getting busier out there in the park, which is wonderful to see, it's getting a little dicey at times. You see cars coming through and people walking in the road because it's the only place to walk, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think
yes.
that's something we're definitely in our phase 2 improvements. So phase 1 is to get it in this fall. And then once the ground softens up again, we're going to look at a trail system. Also, we've been talking about on pavement trail markers. So something really easy, whether it be decals or spray chalk or something like that, just to map out a route in the existing infrastructure on existing sidewalks and put, mile markers and those type of things as part of our signage and wayfinding project. And so I think you'll see both of those things come to fruition. We're kind of phasing them out over the next 6 months. Other questions about the early park improvements before Joey jumps into programs and events? All right, Joey.
So good morning, everybody. My name is Joey Vasca. I oversee programs and operations at the park. Just a couple event updates. As we're all aware, during COVID-19, we've had to think outside the box and be creative on safe ways to start to welcome the public back and engage folks at the park. So we have a couple of drive-in events coming up at the park just to provide you an update on. This Saturday at the park, we're going to be doing a Halloween drive-in movie. We're going to be showing Hotel Transylvania at 7 p.m. We're excited that everyone in attendance will get a bag of Halloween candy, and also in partnership with Wake Med, we'll be doing a mask giveaway as part of that event as well. So that was very popular from a registration standpoint. So we're really excited to invite a lot of different folks from all around the Triangle area to join us for the movie on Saturday. Also, we're excited tomorrow afternoon, we will be making a big announcement in partnership with WRAL about Nights of Lights. So Nights of Lights is a partnership between, like I said, WRAL and Capital Broadcasting with support from Art Disclosure to have the first ever drive-through holiday light show at Dix Park. So we've been working behind the scenes and planning for the last couple of months to really think about ways that we can really focus and really, accentuate the beautiful trees and open spaces in Dix Park for a 1.3 drive-through light display that you'll see over the second half of December. One of the great things, like I talked about earlier, is we can do this in a very COVID-safe, family-friendly way where folks will remain in their car and drive through the park to see the beautiful light displays and the lights coming from the trees. Just a couple of date updates. Like I said, tomorrow afternoon is the public announcement for the event. It'll be talked about during the evening newscast on WRAL. The event dates are Wednesday, December 16th through Thursday, December 1st. And on the 31st, we're excited to work with Archsplosion to do a drive-through First Night Raleigh experience. And then those tickets will go on sale on the 21st of November. So lots of exciting information coming up. We're really, like I said, excited about the partnership with WRAL with support from Archsplosion to bring a holiday, opportunity for families to come out to the park and enjoy. So we'll provide more information as we are moving closer to the event. If anybody has any event questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I have a few questions, please. What will the cost of tickets be?
So it depends on the night. So they're going to be they're going to start at $10. Some nights will be $10 and some will be $15, just depending on when they happen during the course of the event.
Okay. What kind of outreach are we doing to Southeast Raleigh?
We have a targeted approach for Southeast Raleigh around the event. We've designated some tickets in the ticket package to work with different groups in that area to engage with that community to ensure that they have the opportunity to attend the event.
How are we reaching out to them?
So we've worked on identifying a list of different organizations in that area. And if anybody has any recommendations to make sure that of organizations that are on that list, I would love to hear those, just to make sure we're including all of those groups and providing opportunities through tickets for those organizations to work with families in those communities to attend the event.
Are we reaching out to the churches as well?
We do have some churches on the list, but if there are some specific ones that we want to make sure that are on that list, I'd be welcome to those recommendations to make sure that we try to hit as many as possible.
Okay.
Can we just follow up after the meeting with the outreach list to everybody? And then if somebody sees something missing, they can follow up rather than people trying to guess who we've already identified.
I think that's a great approach, Tansy.
Yep. I just want this to be top of mind when we do events, because let's face it, we saw the polling numbers were not good. And I think that we really have to focus on expanding the reach of the park and making sure everybody feels that this is truly a park for all. And that's one way we can do it. I will also be bringing up at our council meeting a request from Knights of Lights for a city sponsorship. And I am going to ask that some of that money be used for tickets for those who might not be able to afford it. Okay.
I think one other thing, Mayor, that we're working on is we also realize that not everyone has access to a personal vehicle. And so are there opportunities through the Parks and Recreation bus and or trolley system that we're able to work with community groups to ensure a safe event, but for people that may not have access to a personal vehicle. So we'll follow up. We'll go ahead and put the strategy together and get that out to everyone, and we welcome any feedback because we do want this to be open and accessible to as many people who want to participate.
I love the trolley and bus idea. Thank you.
Kate, I have a question. Can you explain the 2 price points?
And I'd be happy to kind of send how it breaks down. It really depends on what the nights are. So kind of leading up to the Christmas weekend, it's at the $15 price point, and after Christmas, it's at the $10 price point.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Joey on Knights of Lights? More information to come. We'll follow up with you, or the movie night this weekend.
I just want to thank WRAL, and I want to thank staff for making this happen. I think this is really important, and quite frankly, we need something to celebrate right now. So looking forward to this.
You are as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. I'd now like to turn it over to Grayson to introduce our guests from NVVA to move us into the Plaza and Play presentation. So Grayson.
Morning, it's good to see everybody. Thank you for having us. I want to introduce Michael Van Valkenburg Associates again. We are moving into our 50% schematic design. Since we've last met, we had a meeting. We had about 350 attendees join us. We were very excited with that. We felt like for a virtual meeting, it went fairly well. So thank you to the MVVA team for that, as well as the 313 consultants. Last week, we had 6 focus groups, and we were pleased with those as well. So we are really rolling along, and they offered to provide you all with an update on where things are leading us up to our 50% schematic design submittal, which is next month. So with that, I think, Hillary, does it go to you first?
I'm actually going to invite Matt to say a few words to tee us up, and then
Okay.
I'm going to spend a few minutes sharing some of our public feedback.
Wonderful, thank you.
Matt, you want to take it away?
Yeah.
Can everyone see the screen?
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get the mayor caught up afterwards because we only got 10 minutes before she has to leave.
I see I
But-
have to leave right now, so.
Okay. Well, it's
apologize
kind
for
of better,
that.
honestly, than just seeing one tiny little bit of it.
Okay, no, I will follow up and thank you. And Jim, watch out now. Jim is in charge. You don't know what might happen now.
That's right.
I'm fully aware of that tendency.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, Hillary, why don't we look at the little overview slide? Or is it up and I just don't see it?
Oh no, it's loading.
It's loading.
Got a spinning
okay.
wheel.
So I just wanted to say that Carlton and Nancy and actually other people followed up from public comment, like Anne Franklin and other people all made comments that were related to, I think, very intelligent comments that were related to how does this project, how does the Plaza in Play, I'm going to paraphrase and not use any of their exact words, but how does it not become, how does it relate to the rest of the project, to the rest of the 300 acres, to the future of Raleigh, to the area around it? How does it not become an island? Basically, it's all a related question. Like, in other words, are you thinking about how the next steps and how this ties in? And so I responded that we had a lot of free work that we owed you on that. And so I wanted to, and I think it's an extremely important question, and we have several answers to it. So that's what this special extra meeting is about, really addressing that. I don't know why our slide's not coming up, Hillary.
I know, I apologize. I'm
Okay.
having some technical difficulties.
Okay.
I want to just pull up the slides in 1 second.
Okay.
Just bear with me all.
Nope, no problem. So anyway, you know, how, because the boundary of the Plaza and Play project is actually technically a vestige of the cost estimating, the conceptual cost estimating breakdown of the park areas from back in the master plan. So there is, as Nancy sensed in her, why is it, you know, her question was essentially, why is it shaped like that? You know, it had to do with that, really. And so we wanted to, you know, just back up and, in a certain sense, and just show how this thing dovetails together.
Okay.
Hillary, I can show the presentation if you'd like to get started. And
Yeah,
then
I
we can-
apologize. I'm gonna try to run it through SharePoint.
Okay.
So hopefully that will work for everyone. So, okay.
There you go.
So there's our overview slide, which Matt just went through. Okay.
Yeah, so there's some innocuously named parts here called Project Extents and Project Facing. But what you get to see when you see Project Extents and Project Facing is our first ideas of actually how the program is laid out on the site. So it's sort of like pre-design preview, actually, is what it should be called. Okay, go ahead,
Okay.
Hillary.
So yeah, we just concluded a major round of public engagement efforts, starting with our first public meeting, as Grayson mentioned, which was at the beginning of the month. The meeting was moderated by the fascinating Dr. Mickey Fern and led by our subconsultant team 313 Creative, based out of Detroit. who have this incredible way of facilitating events with as much gentleness and fairness as objectivity. And so we felt like it was a really successful event. So we wanted to take, we wanted to take this opportunity to share some of the feedback that we've been receiving with all of you, since it's both interesting and helpful to keep in mind as we move this project forward. And one of the results that we're really happy to see is that people joined our event from all over Raleigh, as opposed to just one area or certain neighborhoods. So as this map shows, there was a healthy distribution of participants. As Grayson mentioned, there were almost 400 event participants. We received on our public input site 705 comments related to informational videos, feedback activities, a pre-meeting survey and a post-meeting survey, as well as frequently asked questions. And in total, over 1,000 views and engagement with that website. So overall, we feel like it's been a great site and resource for the public and way for us to quantify how we're engaging with folks. So to pull out some takeaways for you, since there's been a lot of feedback, we're seeing a very strong desire for a prominent water feature in the park, so a water fountain, as well as maximizing natural landscapes and planting into the Plaza Play, and providing not one or two, but a real wide diversity of offerings. One concern that we've been hearing a lot about as well, and repeatedly, is revolving around ensuring access for all people and all modes of arrival, making it a place that is truly welcoming to all ages, cultures, and abilities, and that's across the board. Another one of the things that we're getting a lot of comments about is a topic that's not in our scope, but critical nonetheless, and that is the impact of change on the adjacent and nearby neighborhoods, which we understand is the prime focus of the city's Dix Edge study. And this is a project we are coordinating actively with and strongly looking to for guidance on this important topic. So we worked very hard to make our virtual public meeting interactive, and we had equal parts what we called listening sessions with the segments where we were presenting or talking. And we had a bunch of live polls, which were really fun. Not everybody participated that attended the event. And we intentionally left a lot of the prompts open-ended. And so we wanted to share some of the results with you here. So I'm actually going to start here. So this is a cross-pollination of 2 poll questions: how people are going to be arriving to the site and what they're most excited about. And so at the top, we can see that folks who are going to be walking and biking are equally interested in plaza and play elements. So that includes the civic fountain and innovative play for all ages, as well as the new entrance to Dix Park. At the bottom, we see, though, a difference in that people who are driving seem to be more excited about the civic fountain and plaza elements. And then folks who are relying on the bus for transportation are really excited about this new cool space for innovative play for all ages. So going back up to some of the poll results, so driving was the top form of travel to as the preferred mode of travel to Plaza Play, with biking and walking close behind. The general character of nature play, as we called it, which incorporates wood and stone and other natural objects into the play areas, was the overwhelming preferred type of play. Iconic elements in the landscape, as shown here in number 3, as well as gardens, innovative play for all ages, and the new entrance to Dix Park with the civic fountain and plaza were also communicated to us. And then lastly, above and beyond, a mix and a balance of plaza and play was the most important thing to our participants. And so essentially what all this means is that we're receiving confirmation from the public on our concepts that were set out in the master plan. And this really reinforces and helps us focus on the project priorities as we move deeper into the design process of the plaza in play. And so with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Matt.
All right, thank you. So the current extents, like I mentioned in the introduction, which is outlined in blue here, is really a vestige of our kind of parceling up the site in terms of cost estimating areas and a kind of early attempt at what might be a phasing diagram. So, so it was our duty really to kind of re-examine this, I think, in terms of you know, what will work and what will most support the first phase, plaza in play phase, and what makes most sense in terms of thinking about what we're doing here as it relates to other features and the future of the park and the master plan, other things to come. Go ahead. Also, another little piece of reality check has been the Lake Wheeler Road is very, you know, small, as we know now. What we've done is we've taken the easement a standard easement that the city would use to modernize that road, and we've applied it to Lake Wheeler Road. And then we've also been looking at various scenarios for the power lines, and we've taken the easement that the power line company would want, and we've applied that. And the bad news, quote unquote, of that is it's 3 acres of the site. Okay. The good news is that I think we've found a way to, what we've done is we've sort of taken worst case scenario on both of those and incorporated them. There, we might be able to get something less than that land used for those easements, but I actually don't think that there's any problem with this, and I'm going to try to show you how we deal with that. But basically what it does is it pushes the project off the street. Now, that was one of the main public comments that we got in the master plan was, I don't want to be too close to the street there, and especially with play areas or anything like that. So that was important. One of the things to be aware of, and I don't want to get derailed onto this, but it is important, is that easement plows through lots of trees and buildings and everything. And you can just see the things that are affected there. We're working on that, but I want you to be aware that it's not just a benign thing. You could also see it drawn on the ground here. The easement for the power lines goes right through our nicest trees on the site. And so is there other ways to solve that? We're looking into that now. And maybe it could be more coordinated with the design of the road, for instance. Okay, big idea, really big. One of the things, obviously, one of the reasons why this project is a project to make a park is really because of this beautiful area in front of the Grove and Harvey Hill, as it's sometimes called, right here with these beautiful views. Why? Because this was designed as a picturesque landscape as an entrance to the hospital. It already was a beautifully designed landscape and experience. The neighborhood got involved with replanting trees after they got blown over. It's a park already, basically, and it's used as a park already, and it's a great asset. So our site is very near this, or right next to it, or almost. And so how can we basically effectively co-opt this, as the Japanese would call it, borrowed landscape, into our site and make our site not be an island separated from this, but connected to this? That's a big question to us. So to go back to the easement overlay and the current overlay, what you could see in the diagram here is this idea of taking the historic grove diagrammed in green, and can we somehow draw that up and make it an actual extension of our site and not separate it? Also, what we've done is we said, can we not only pull the feeling of the Grove up, can we pull the feeling of our site out towards it and around Harvey? I'm going to just draw quickly, so if you might not have noticed the difference there. So don't forget, we've lost quote unquote some land here. We're not going to actually lose that land. We're going to use it as a good way to kind of like I could almost call it like a decompression buffer that kind of takes us in from the road, from Lake Wheeler in. So in a certain sense, you shouldn't think of it as a loss. On the other hand, there's some things we can't do under the power lines, like big trees and things like that. So anyway, so what we've done here is we've looked at this idea of bringing the green in, the grove field in, and also bringing the blue out, the blue being the diagram of our Plaza Play project. Yeah, so that I just explained what happened there. Okay, I did that all in one slide. Okay, Hillary, great. So what this results in is a diagram. And Hillary, is that full screen? Can everybody actually see that? How well are people seeing what's on their screen? Okay, well, that's better, I think. So this leads us to a diagram here where we're starting to lay out elements. And I just want to point out a few things, and then we'll show you this in a little bit more detail. But here's the Buffalo House. Here's an area for parking. We're looking at vehicular entrance for cars and also buses that would be going directly to the site coming in here. There would be a public bus stop along Lake Wheeler here. We could have a pedestrian entry here. We could have entry here. We could have entry here, here. And what you can see is we're in response really to comments going back quite a long time now. We're using this fountain as a kind of anchoring element, this plaza civic element that is attractive and something that's going to get your attention right there at the head of a kind of a series of elements that kind of connect in an axial way through the site here. So coming in through parking or from the entrance, we have this idea of an overlook terrace, a plaza, and then drawing the historic grove space up into. So we'll show you that in a little more detail in a second. So in order to do that, actually go back one slide. I'm sorry, Hillary. So in order to do that, we obviously have some things in the way here. And we've been talking with our traffic engineers. There's some drives, one's called Pico Drive, that's in the way here. They're redundant, and in other words, you could get to everywhere they go by other ways. So that's not, it's not impossible to remove them. And there is some parking. All of that is a chess game of moving pieces around, and is not, I'm not diminishing the importance of it, especially in our relationship with the state, but it's also not nuclear fusion either. So we could definitely solve the problem. And I, again, don't want to get distracted with that. I think that we can do that, but, we are aware of the importance of that. But it's also not solved yet because it's going to take a while to work through the details. Anyway, go ahead, Hillary. So in just trying to understand the impact of this, so here's the Buffalo House here, and this is Pico Drive. And what you can see, and when you study the plans, if you read contours well, is they actually filled across a little natural valley here that was an extension of the grove when they built this driveway. And so what we want to do is remove this drive and then bring the natural feel of the grove strongly up into our Plaza Play site. And I'll show you how we do that here. Go ahead, Hillary. So this is just to kind of simplify that so you can understand what you're looking at. And this is the idea of making a public connection that also would allow for park use and things like this. And ultimately, this would become an extension of the loop. So our master plan friends that are still with us from the master plan, almost everybody here on the call actually, knows what the loop is. And it was a major kind of public pathway connecting element for the master plan. And that would become what actually this person is on here in the bike. So you could see the kind of strong connection that we can make, and it's really at pretty low cost. It's really mostly a removal and slight regrading project. Go ahead. So the other thing that was asked, Carlton was talking about the kind of explosive growth that the city is experiencing, and how do we know that we will be able to have a destination play area and park space here that will be appropriate for the future. And Nancy was wondering about why is this project shaped the way it is and things like that. And so from the two different directions, we started to look at that. And to us, the way we wanted to think about it is, this is a very good, a very generous and excellent first phase as it's scoped out right now in terms of project ambition and cost. On the other hand, how do we answer their questions? How does this tie into the future? Can this be made bigger, for instance? So I'd like to just show you how we've studied that in detail and hopefully share my enthusiasm for why I think it's a great solution. So going back here, we have the easement overlays. We're showing the proposed entry access point here. We're showing the removal. The Benner house has been planned on removing. The Buffalo house we keep, and then the driveways that we'd like to remove or reconfigure in this location here. Go ahead. And so this is a kind of very kind of conceptual. Why don't you enlarge that plan that gives a little bit more than a bubble diagram understanding of what we're talking about, just to help aid us in our imagination. So what we're looking at here is by removing those drives that were in here, right? What we're able to do is we're able to basically bring this valley, and you could see, if you understand contours, you could see the shape of this valley here now. You see that? And we're able to kind of bring the feel of that sweep of lawn right up into the core of our project, really making a strong connection to this larger landscape, and also towards the views towards downtown and everything. So all of a sudden, our phase one project becomes, I don't know how many times bigger than it actually is, but it goes from 12 acres to some multiple of that in a certain sense. And then we, just to re-explain in detail here, so school bus parking could happen here, car parking could happen here. Of course, on weekends, we'll address where else parking can happen on the site. There's lots of other places, but imagine on a regular weekday, you could park here, you come down here, and the idea here is to make a kind of elevated terrace. As some people are familiar with the site, they'll know that the site is actually naturally terraced here. What we've done is we've taken the fountain and pushed it down to be the head of this valley as it comes up. That actually also helps separate it more sound-wise and otherwise from the street, and gives it a kind of more held and contained feel to it. But then also creates this incredible dramatic moment where you're at a terrace and you overlook the thing, and you see the kids playing, and you see people watching it, and you see it glittering, and hopefully some view of a distant view beyond. So things all come together in a kind of great moment there. And then of course the grove beyond as well. Then what we've done is we've allowed ourselves this space up here for play related things. And when I say that, I don't mean necessarily the whole thing is full of play equipment. It might be picnic areas with playful elements integrated. It might be some really involved, wonderful play areas that will draw people from every neighborhood here. And this is just a space check, basically. There's no design of that yet, but it's a space check, and we've checked it against a lot of other of our destination play spaces. We feel like we have a really good, what is it, Hillary, about 2.5 acres there? Is that right?
That's right.
2.5 acres to do that there. So that's quite good. And then what we've done is we've taken this idea, we call it a swing terrace, but we've taken a piece of play, if you will, that's a multi-age play, and we've swung it out around Harvey with a distance away from Harvey that Harvey can remain being used in the short term for what it's used for, and it could be restored and it wouldn't damage this landscape. but it also kind of pulls this program out and overlaps it into the Grove, and you get a great visual connection. Go ahead.
Do you want to quickly say a word about the bathrooms and the Buffalo House concession idea?
That would be such a good suggestion. So one of the, some other thoughts as they advance on the Buffalo House. Buffalo House is we've been working with our historic preservation architects. We really can make a kind of time landscape with that. You know, it wasn't continually renovated like, you know, so much of the hospital, which is, you know, ruined really because of its constant renovation. Whereas the Buffalo House kind of existed. Of course, they had to update the bathrooms and things like that, but you know, it's largely intact, and we could make this kind of a wonderful fantasy of a historic house from the early 20th century, and maybe even create a fantasy of a kind of garden around it and things like that, as to support a kind of folly-like thing within the park, but also be add some comfort and other interest. The house could become a setting for many different things, but including an art installation that would be permanent, an art installation that is changing, an art installation that could be about the history of the site in some way. It could just be about the house. I don't, you know, there's a lot of different ways it can go, but, and the house could serve something like coffee or ice cream or beer or something like that. But the idea of kind of overburdening the house with too much work, so to speak, seems to kind of probably, kill the goose that laid the golden egg in a certain sense. And so what we want to do is not do that. And one of the big things that we have need for is public restrooms, especially if we have all the play and water play and things like that that we want here. And of course, public restrooms are very badly needed on the site now anyway. So we have an idea of actually integrating a beautiful modern, we've been talking to our Hobgood collaborators on this, contemporary public restroom into the terrace that I mentioned here, and it could be a beautiful, beautifully integrated into the landscape, and it could be this kind of wonderful crystalline insert in there, with light coming in through light wells, and kind of really play up that. And so the site is sort of anchored by these two very different architectural elements on either side. Go ahead. So I'm sure you're all dying to know, but how does this work with the future? Or at least I was, and some people were. And what we did is, so this is a quick diagram of overlay, and then we'll go to a full build out. But what we did is we took the concept of the loop and we slightly adjusted it, I think, to a better loop here. Very slight adjustment. I'll show you the master plan. But remember what we want to do with the red buildings get removed, and so this cute little slate roofed building here becomes a park house on the loop eventually. Harvey becomes a key element as a kind of park administration visitor center kind of function, is sort of what we were imagining. Of course, all of this is still flexible. But then the loop comes around, and it would actually be engaged with that swing terrace like I mentioned when we were looking at the drawing. Let's see, my annotation stopped working. Why did that happen?
Is it working now?
Oh yeah, it came back. Mysterious.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, so as it comes around there. Now what I love about this, and I really think this is fantastic, is everyone said, so what's this loop, and what's the idea of that? What are we doing? And Michael and I would explain, oh, it's this fantastic path that you walk on that's doesn't have a lot of slope on it. It takes away the challenge of the hill of the site, but it gives you a kind of wonderful encyclopedic experience of everything that's going on in the park, and a whole changing views and different programs and all this kind of stuff. And that's exactly what's happening here. What would happen as you came down the loop is you would come by this little house, this little building here. You'd see the destination play here. Eventually the chiller plant will go and the destination play could be expanded there. Then you'd come out,
Sorry.
Boy, right. Then you come out with this big sweeping view, very different distant view, sweeping view of the green and the distant view of the city. Then you dive back in, because what we're thinking about is future play could start to move up in a kind of northeast direction here. And I want to explain how. You see, there's this, and many of you I'm sure are aware, there's another natural valley that's coming up here, and you could see that here. And then there's just kind of a lot of parking and junk right here. So the idea is to kind of use that gesture of the grove to connect up and create a kind of play axis that moves up through this way and crosses the loop. It could literally cross the route loop. We could have people that went to our Tulsa project saw how we made like tunnels, underpaths, and walkways, overpaths, and fun things. Or it doesn't have to do that. It could just cross that grade too. So anyway, go ahead with the next build out picture, Hillary. So to give that just a little bit more of a sense, what we could do is we could have a real active node here. We're calling this a play garden. This could be a more garden-y play space that's related to Harvey, and then it could have another active destination here. So, and we're suggesting this is actually connected over, and this one connected under here, and this one's connected over. So, Carlton, there's great room and space to kind of expand this play area as the city grows, and to kind of take advantage of the site and I think see how this might work over time. We're not boxing ourselves in, and some of this could happen, as soon as the land is available. So I'm excited about those possibilities. Now the other question. No, I can't clear my brown line, Hillary. Maybe you can.
It's gone.
Can you?
They're gone. I have the master plan up.
Now, let me go back one thing. I wanted to address in Nancy's question about the I-shaped building, the brown building.
Yeah.
So Nancy was asking about the buildings and what the hell, why is there this chop out there in the base of the site and all of that. And one of the things that we think is a great future idea, but maybe fairly short-term future, is to think about the brown building, which is this I-shaped building here, as being a park supporting building. It's beautifully situated, and we could plan how we lay out everything here to anticipate this. Again, I don't think we should try to jam it into the immediate project. The state is still in there. But honestly, it could be something that we could, in a year or two, start working on in terms of planning, and then it could be our next thing that we wind up opening. But imagine there's great utility in having a kind of park, what I call a park house. We call it a lodge in our Tulsa project, but it's sort of like a public building that has some flexible space in it. We want to explore this architecturally, but could this space be used as a kind of big public room where you could just get out of the weather and bad weather and go in there and read the newspaper, or you could have weddings in there, or you could have quinceañeras in there, or you could glue popsicle sticks together in there with kids at summer camp. You could do all kinds of fun things. We could make some kind of terrace that came out of the building there and kind of related it to this site here. We could put even more bathrooms, because you'll never have enough in there. We could have storage in there. We could have concession in there if you want it. So there's something nice about the way the building addresses the landscape. It's almost all of the interior spaces have very good access to windows. It's a great light. It comes from the time when they still thought windows were important. So it's got a great connection to the landscape. So I feel like the idea of just thinking about the site, sort of the short-term, long-term site, including the brown building and it becoming a park house and applying our imagination to that helps me anyway understand how this project fits and dovetails into the future of the project site. So with that, Hillary,
Would you like the
and
master
what you
plan?
can see, this has got the full park build out on it. So we have the parking that will eventually come up here. We have the removed buildings, so we can see the kind of density of architecture that we're going to have eventually. So this is just a quick kind of merging of the plan with the master plan intentions. And with that, I think we want to,
Do you want to say a word about parking? And then we can hand it over to everyone for a discussion.
Why don't you just explain
Sure.
what this is?
So parking came up as part of our discussion with you all last time, particularly the mayor. And something that we've begun studying is the availability today of parking spaces that are technically under the purview of DHHS, but are available to the public for the Plaza Place site on weekends and weeknights. And so doing a quick calculation, within a 5-minute walk today, there are about, maybe even more, 1,000 parking spaces within the site. So keeping that in mind, we're studying, as you saw, the 3 parking bays for the Plaza Play, an additional designated 150 spots. It's something we're continuing to study. But this is a helpful number to keep in mind, especially as we look to sister projects, amusement type projects like Pullen Park that have similar numbers. So the main takeaway here is that we're not underserving parking at a quick glance, and we're looking for ways to accommodate daily demand in the short term. And then long term, it was suggested that we could employ shuttles or adjacent site overflow lots, and there are thousands of spaces available both in downtown Raleigh and then the Centennial campus at NC State just across Centennial Parkway. So just to make the point that we're looking at parking carefully, we're working with VHB, our sub-consultants, on studying the right quantities, and we look forward to exploring this in collaboration with the city moving forward. So with that, I think we'll just open the floor for any reactions and questions and comments.
Or you might want to go back to the phase 1 diagram.
Okay.
Matt and Hillary, I have just a point of clarification. Can you remind us what the Broughton and Clark buildings are meant to be in the future? Which are the ones to the left of the brown?
And I'll jump in here. Neither the Broughton, Clark, nor Brown actually had a programmed use in the master plan. So they are part of the National Register Historic District, but they were never programmed with an intended use.
I see. But they were planned to remain in some way.
Yeah, it was always this idea of area for future inquiry or future investigation.
Gotcha. Okay.
We didn't have a specific use for them.
But also, that decision was very much influenced by the designation, right? And the fact that they're decent buildings too. Of many of the buildings that we've taken down are crimes against architecture at this point.
Well, so those buildings were obviously part of the reason that I asked about the weird shape. Sorry, this is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hey, and what I was really thinking was, and I don't know if we have the ability to take them down or not, but that space, to think about a really creative, cool parking type structure there. We're going to have the amphitheater on the other side. So we know we're going to need even more parking in the future to service all of that. So is it possible to think about moving? I mean, I don't know exactly what the historic register means. Does it mean that we cannot take any of those down? Should we look at Broughton and Clark? I'm just throwing it out there.
We do have quite a lot of parking for the amphitheater planned in the master plan. That surface parking, up, much nearer to where it would need to be.
Okay.
We certainly could continue to I don't think there's any reason that we couldn't study making a structure. And we can do that. Just given the amount of room that we have, in the master plan, we just looked for ways. I think we found a lot of spots on the site that no one knew really existed, and they're actually kind of tucked on the hill where it's kind of falling away from you, especially when you're on the loop or in any of the important areas. So and I could go over the master plan and show you this, but we've kind of tucked bays into those slopes. So you're kind of looking over the parking and not at it in many locations. So we've, with 300 acre, parking structure makes a lot of sense downtown because land is expensive in density and all of that. But with 300 acres, we felt like we could try to find a way to integrate all the parking. We have 2,600 spaces in this park in a full build out. And that's in the park, surface parking, and not, I think, crammed in. Not with a kind of feeling of Walmart parking lot or anything like that anywhere. All of the bays, for instance, are integrated. So, but on the other hand, I mean, I would never say, well, we can't study a parking structure. We can do that for sure.
Will you zoom in a little bit more? Sorry, just to maximize the slide. Thank you.
But in terms of the building, the brown building is perfectly situated in relationship to this space. And so to us, I definitely don't want to tear it down now because of the way it could. I think we're going to look into it, but the way it could serve this space, I think would be great. And I really like the way let me just show here. I think I like the way this, and honestly, even the way this, and then Harvey, and then remember our little building up here eventually. They kind of create this kind of loose framing of the site in a beautiful way. I think it was actually intentional in terms of the way the buildings were laid out on the site, because this always was a play space here. So there's a kind of legacy of architectural intention to me that I think we're decoding here. So there's a kind of beauty to it that I think the site might be actually too unbounded without it. So.
Okay.
Yep.
This is Mark. Great work, folks. This is really exciting, I think. I think there are about 4 really big strengths to this that are going to serve us well. The first is that vista from the overlook terrace across the fountain to the lawn and beyond. Really a strong organizing feature for this that'll make this a landmark for the park right from the beginning. That's going to really set the stage for this park. Second is the incorporation of the loop coming through with some wonderful experiences, and that swing terrace is really a strong move. The brown building as a park building is quite convincing. That's a convincing argument. I would encourage us to keep that in mind. And finally, that play area away from Lake Wheeler really makes it part of the park and gives it a little buffer from the activity and the buses and everything that happens down there. It also gives the neighborhoods a buffer. So I think structure, just sort of the puzzle pieces are really strong here and ready to, I think it's ready to go to that next level where we start actually designing the next level of detail. So thanks so much. Very good.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Matt, this is Carlton. Good morning. Couple of comments. Kudos to your graphics team. This is a lot of information on those slides shown in a very organized and a very pleasing way. This strikes me as really sophisticated graphics masquerading as cartoon diagrams. Somebody up there did a good.
Yeah, thank you very much. They make me feel like I work at a graphic design firm sometimes.
Yeah, no, this is good. The lodge from Tulsa was an amazingly strong and multi-purpose element, in addition to being pretty nice architecture and furnishings. But I don't know about the brown building and its location. It makes sense to me, but I think the purpose you're talking about, the lodge, really served a strong purpose at Tulsa. And whether it's the brown building or whatever else, I love the idea of recreating something like that, even if we don't spend that much per chair that they did there. Also, the play area versus Tulsa, how many acres were in the hard play area, the real toys and stuff?
5, I think.
And so will you have about that much with the existing play? It struck me as being light on the front end in play, and this is a recurring theme of mine, but if you go to the additional one on the other side of the little garden.
We'll have more.
More than there.
We'll have more than Tulsa.
In separating the two sort of sculptural play elements with the garden, you think works? Obviously you do. You're not losing impact by having people sort of move through the garden to get to the play area.
Well, you know, you got to learn from your experiences. And one of the things I've learned from my experience is that if you could create some lulls or different types of energy in between different parts of the play experiences, it's easier to keep track of the kids, basically. And so what we've done here is we've made the kind of gateways, if you will, in between the different cells more defined. And like any parent might know, it's just an easier way to kind of manage. You might even just decide, okay, we're going to go to the, Castle Fairyland today. And that's where we're going, kids. Okay. And you might even be able to kind of manage where the kids are and understand that in a kind of conceptual sense. So we've made the rooms a little bit more defined here than they are in Tulsa because, in Maggie Daly Park, people always say they lose their kids in there. They don't say it with a distress in their voice, but they say it like hilariously, but still it's something to think about. And so this is something we're trying to improve in this design here.
Thank you. It's very exciting. Thanks for
that. I love your background. Is that live background?
So beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's not as nice a park background as yours.
Well, my real background is not acceptable, so I put some trees. I put some trees up.
I'm operating from an undisclosed location.
Can see that.
Matt, this is Nancy again. Can I ask another question? What's the difference between play garden and destination play?
Play garden, Nancy, you went to, actually, was Pier 3 done when you guys went to the park? I don't think it was.
Yeah.
So do you remember the kind of the kind of hedge garden with all the fun things that you found in it, the mirror maze and things like that? That's sort of more of a play garden to us. It doesn't have play surfacing. It's more embedded in a kind of garden fantasy kind of idea. It's for all ages.
Okay, like with the creek. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Other members of the leadership committee? Yeah, go ahead.
Is the chiller plant long-term or is that there as long as the existing infrastructure for the state buildings are there? I can't remember.
That building serves
the
existing infrastructure, so it's there until the state.
Okay.
It's part of the highly inefficient centralized system they have.
I just want to point out, and this may be apparent to everyone, but I think one of the genius moves of this is it speaks to the duality of the site. It speaks to this idea of an urban park, exciting, dynamic experience. And it speaks to what we all love about the site, which is this green, open, wooded nature escape. And so the way that, originally I always thought that this the Plaza Play would be just that urban experience. But what I think is so smart about this scheme is that they brought in the Grove, and we're expressing both of those themes of the master plan, the, you know, escape to nature, green, into this urban dynamic area. And so I think it really addresses a lot of what we heard through the community process. And I think it's a really smart way as the first project to address that park for everyone notion in a really smart way. So I'm really excited about it in terms of how it kind of really embraces the themes and goals of the master plan. Yeah, I think it's good stuff.
Thank you, Kate.
The idea that it would be a microcosm of the whole park was an ambition we had that we didn't tell anybody too much yet because we didn't know if we could do it. But I think that this gets close to that, kind of getting at least a gesture of that in there.
Other comments from the group, from anyone we haven't heard? Jen, you're our new leadership committee member.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I actually was just going to say, you know, going off of Mark's comments, I really do like how you're kind of pulling it toward the plan east and toward the Grove, and with that swing terrace, and then the future for future expansion is very convincing and works really nicely. One thing I'm wondering about, I guess I'm struggling more with the kind of plan left side of the screen and the parking area and those existing buildings. And that's what keeps drawing my eye there. And in particular, you know, the little leg that it connects to the future parking. I guess I'm wondering, does that even need to be a part of this phase? I mean, maybe I'm getting too caught up in the details here, but you know, that it seems like that portion doesn't need to be a part of this cost estimate. Like, you know, connecting that little road that leads between Broughton and Clark to the future parking, that's really for future expansion. Seems like we really could just end it right underneath Clark Broughton.
That's something to consider, Jen. I like it as a way of a overflow release. If this immediate parking lot is full, you could go to the other ones on the weekend. But we could look at that. We'll talk about we'll look at that with VHB. That's what we'll do. How do you like?
Yeah.
I'll get a professional's opinion on that.
Right.
They're our traffic engineers.
Right.
And so is the idea, because those future parking bays would not be built in this phase, but you're thinking that would connect to the existing parking of the 1,000 spaces that are on the site. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of it is right there, right where that drive is going.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think it also, you know, when you're looking at it in plan view, it does, you know, it does poke out as a leg, if you will, but it provides connectivity from within the park. So if you're internal to the park, you're able to get into this site without having to go down to Lake Wheeler Road and then enter back in.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Branch, I think you were.
Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely like everything that's been presented. And I wanted to that leg, actually the part that I thought about and I like it is from a safety standpoint, because there's very few access points to this project, to this park. And you know, I have a 2-year-old, you know, and I'm just thinking about kids and things of that nature. You know, if we need to get any safety vehicles or anything internally to the park, that leg will actually be useful, you know, from that standpoint. But overall, I like the way you're using the topology from Brown down towards the fountain. This used to be, if I'm correct, where the old softball field is. And I'm used to that. I'm used to driving up between Clark and Brown and walking down that hill to the softball field where the fountain is. So I like the way you have the overlook and that connectivity. I know there's going to needs to be some grading from the parking down to it. So making sure ADA compliant with that. I'm sure you'll figure all that out, but I definitely like the connection, and it seems open and accessible to everyone. And for me, that's very key. You didn't talk much about the picnic grove, but I do see that down there, and I think its location is great as well.
Corey, I didn't mention that last time we met. You talked about conflicts or how do we avoid conflicts between pedestrians and cars and bus, and so that was something we were really thinking about, in kind of, I feel like we got rid of all of those conflicts, and the plan that we had in the master plan had some built-in conflicts, so I think we've improved a lot, mostly in the encouragement of people like you to think about that some more.
Thank you.
Also, Corey, we didn't talk much about our meetings with the focus groups, which are convened predominantly by the community committee, but with also some other folks. And it came up in one of those, the idea of how people in Raleigh really come together around food. I think it's true for all people, but one of the things that we're exploring more is what is Raleigh's food culture and how can we really celebrate that in this place. And so we heard grills and picnic tables, places for people to come together around food are things that we're trying to explore more and incorporate into the plan.
And you just made me think about something in the parking lot. An event like a food truck Saturday or something, where the parking lot could be used for possibly food trucks to come in.
That's a great idea.
Bring that to the area.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point, and it's something that we're constantly trying to think of is how to layer spaces. Like the parking lot doesn't have to just be for visitors. It can be used for event spaces just like that. Maybe even outposts from the farmers market or other types of fairs. And using that layered thinking and looking at the plaza and the different lawn spaces is something that we're trying to do more of. So thank you for that idea. That's great.
And on the weekend is when you do that, and that's when all the other spaces would be available, so it would take the pressure off the lot.
Yeah.
Hillary, another way that's being treated right now is at the Art Museum, which if you visited, has a very large outdoor garden and sculpture area. And you also know in the time of COVID that the inside of the museum is very nice and very expensive and largely off limits. So what they've done is taken local Raleigh chefs. Actually, Christensen is one of James Beard Award and is well known in the community. And she is doing lunches. So you call and reserve a lunch and it's absolutely drop dead delicious. And then you go out into the park amidst the sculpture and you have this lunch. And it's like food truck and gourmet intersect. So there's a lot of ways to celebrate culture with our local chefs by integrating these things on a temporary basis, and that would be well received.
Fabulous. That sounds really fun. Sounds like someone we should reach out to.
Well, Raleigh's got to happen. I mean, it's not just Ashley. You just set up some facility where they can prepare and have, and so you could have a party out there. You could have a garden party with 25 people at the park, and you don't do anything about food. You just reserve 25 of it's just totally different.
Any other comments from the group who we haven't heard? Orridge or Oscar?
One thing I want to follow back up on what Mr. Branch had mentioned. I was going to mention about the food truck areas as well. One thing we might want to consider if we do implement a food truck parking areas would possibly be, having some utilities available for them, just to kind of make it a little bit easier. A lot of them we know are not self-contained. So one thing to consider. Another thing that I wanted to get clarification on, as far as a play garden, would that incorporate a lot of natural play elements as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So I like everything that I'm seeing and hearing. And I would just ask this question as we talk about Broughton and Clark. For future expansion, which I think we're going to need, I think Carlton is right on that we're just going to need more space. If possibly we could use that Clark building or remove that Clark building for more park activity. Just a thought.
We'll continue to look at that, I think. That's not on or off the table for sure.
This is Tansy. I don't want to be repetitive of such great comments that have already been made. But similarly, I mean, I really applaud the connection to the context of the future of planning. Similar to others, really impressed with the concept of how you bring in the grove. Really appreciate the focus on leveraging existing parking assets. And then really appreciate the thoughtfulness about circulation and connectivity within the park to take pressure off of the single exit and really make sure that people can enjoy all of the park and disperse some of that traffic and parking demand throughout the site. So really thoughtful work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tansy.
Jim, I usually don't ever have to call on you.
He's speechless.
No, I mean, my first question is where does the world's biggest Ferris wheel go? I asked that we ever had was, and you've never answered, Matt. No, I think it's fine.
I actually did too tell you where it goes. It goes up in the top for the Fireman's Fair. I already told you that.
Okay. So I'm really interested in the parking discussion. I think that's, have you sort of estimated what a typical daily or a typical weekend attendance would be to this first phase? And figured out are we good with that notion? We'll have 8,000 a day on the weekend, and how we're going to park them?
That's a great question, Jim. It's exactly the type of question we're trying to put an answer to with VHB this week. So we'll have an answer for you next time we talk.
And I just, Matt, just sitting here, I really like the connection to the Grove. Could we think about how you get to the farmer's market and how you get to the big field from here? Would we do anything just to get there? How do you get from the farmer's market to here?
Yeah, the multi-use path will take you down there that we're going to put in along Lake Wheeler. It comes up through the Grove and then connects to Lake Wheeler. So that will be one connection. And then to the Grove, you know, I didn't want to sidetrack the meeting about your point about trails and connections. It's almost a whole other meeting, but there's a complexity to, there's a kind of not so obvious complexity to your desire or your question about trail connectivity, because the site is not accessible right now in a lot of ways. It wasn't conceived of it in that point in time, and the circulation on the site is roadways that get you to buildings. So there's a strong disconnection between our intention of making this a publicly accessible park someday and what it is right now. And so you get into, you really start unraveling a cable net sweater if you start to try to make an accessible network, because you can start to, even if you made an accessible loop, which I think we could look at, we will give a quick look at that. But first of all, you get into surfaces and accessibility, and is it wheelchair accessible and all of that. And then also, once you have an accessible route and you have all these unaccessible paths that are connected to it, then there's a lot of confusion and legal problems that come out of that. So it's a kind of benign sounding question that has a kind of complex answer. So we have to, doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to answer it. I love tough questions. So we should try to do that as a temporary thing. But just throwing down a wood chip path to make 90% of the people happy because they want to jog might make more trouble than you could imagine also. So that's just something to think about.
Yeah, okay. I am, you know, the connection to the farmer's market is a really big deal long range.
It sure is.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Hillary, let's look at that in terms of what we're building of that versus you know, what's in this phase, and then we'll show Jim that in the diagram next time. Okay.
You got it.
But this is great, Matt. Hillary, thank you very much. Look,
Man, this is David. I really like this, but I have just one question here. On this parking, that parking will fill up gradually during the course of the day.
Yes.
But if we have a thunderstorm or some weather event, everybody's gonna want to leave at one time.
Mhm.
Can we get that many people out, or do we have a plan to run them out through the rest of the park so that you have more than one way out of that parking area?
Good question, Dave. We'll talk to VHB about that.
And we'll also be meeting with the fire department, and we'll make sure we ask them to assess.
There might be a way to have an overflow valve on it.
Okay.
And Matt, one other thing, you might have this. I have them, but I haven't looked at them. I think there are 3 requests to the city for, I would call major projects across the street there on Lake Wheeler, some 10-story buildings, that sort of stuff. And I don't know what the parking is. I don't know what all that is, but I think it'd be good to get that in the mix.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I was getting ready to kind of bring up, what are you guys thinking for the connection to the neighborhood across Lake Wheeler? I know there's the Dix Edge study, but do you have something in mind? Are there crosswalks at each of these sort of intersections, or what are you thinking there?
Our thought that was those are proper intersections that you can cross at, all of them. And that's one reason why we extended the one existing road into the park there, to make that a stronger connection. But yes, I feel like they should be, and I don't know if any of them will merit a light, but I think if they could, that would be better.
And the Dix,
yeah,
just as a point of, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say, if we can, just have staff get with transportation and as they look at the widening of this street and things, it's best to build infrastructure in the beginning, then go back and retrofit. So I think sharing this information of entrances to the space with the transportation will help in designing some of that in the very beginning. It may be a Hawkeye system, it may be crosswalks, I don't know, but working with transportation and planning can better assist in answering those questions.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Branch, you're exactly right. We're working with the UDC and transportation on the streetscape as part of the Dix Edge study that will take into account the proposed entrances to the Plaza Play. So that's all being kind of layered together as we think about the improvements to Lake Road. So now that we've got this scheme ahead of us, that's something we can hand off directly to Edge, consultants, transportation, and the Urban Design Center. We are almost out of time. So I wanted to, Matt, do you have any kind of closing remarks before I jump into next steps and schedule?
No, I just, if you have some lightning bolt thought over tonight or whatever, I definitely get it to us. We are on a tight schedule on this project, so we're making a lot of progress every day on things. So if you have a thought, you want to get it in the mix, get it to us through Grayson right away. And thank you for coming together for this special meeting. We just wanted to make sure we had I'm assuming from the reactions that we've answered the questions that were raised in the other meeting, and that we could move ahead with this as a plan. With the understanding that there'll be lots of further development, if that's the case. Is that the case?
I would say yes.
so.
I just have one question, Nancy, again. Is anybody talking to Duke Power about? Okay, Kate's nodding, so okay.
Yes.
Matt, I think you got the proverbial nod.
Say that,
Carlton, say that again.
You guys are always around the room looking at the table, looking to see for the nod. I think you got the proverbial nod.
That's great.
All right, Hillary, I'm going to take back over the screen if you'll bring yours down. Thank you. Just in terms of final, oh, maybe I'm not. We've got another meeting scheduled for November. It is the week of Thanksgiving, but it is that Tuesday. So I think we're going to proceed with that schedule. Grayson has also scheduled a number of site walks to this study area. So if they're public site walks, so if you'd like to participate and walk the site with Grayson and get a better on the ground feel for this project, we will send out those dates after this meeting. But I do want to just close us out by saying this is all, oh, Jim's going to close us out. Yep.
No, I'm not closing. I promise that there are 2 or 3 things we're going to mention every meeting.
Yep.
Do we need it? Have we made progress on Lake Wheeler Road? Any report on that? Anybody got a report on that?
So I think we spent a long time at our last meeting sort of understanding what the long-term plan is there. I think Kate talked about some of the work that's being done in Dix Edge around the streetscape. Again, with regard to actual capital improvements, there is not a current project funded for design on Lake Wheeler Road. So that'll be a future, that'll have to be a future consideration in either reallocating existing transportation bond funds, which would mean eliminating a planned project that exists today, or looking to a future park bond to include some elements to support that, or a future transportation bond, which at this point is not being discussed. So, but I think there was a broad understanding that what is in the street plan does support the vision of the park. And so it's really now refining the vision of what that would look like from a streetscape perspective, which would help to inform any future design. Kate, is that good synopsis of where we are?
That's right, yes.
Okay, and construction manager? Where are we with that?
I think there'll be more coming really soon.
On the city's going to hire a construction manager.
Yeah, I think we're in the final stages of deliberation that has, I don't know that we haven't confirmed, I think, what date that will go to the council for confirmation, but I think there'll be more to report very soon. Sorry, Kate, I'm going to hand this back to you.
Yeah, Stephen, do you want
to? Doing a great job.
And
we've done the interviews, Jim. We narrowed it down. We've completed the interviews, and staff has a recommendation. Now it's just putting on the city council agenda.
Okay, and we are still we hired MVVA to design a $35 million project. And what's the overall budget with you add the city cost to it? What is the total cost, Kate?
So based on our conceptual cost estimate, which MVVA in partnership with the construction manager and engineering services will actually create the budget for this, but it was a 52 million all in, 35 million construction, and then that 52 accounts for things like escalation, project contingency, and the like. But of MVVA's scope of work, and as part of the construction manager's scope of work, there is a very thorough and intense cost estimating process. So that those numbers will be chewed all the way through, chewed up.
I'm very excited about adding the Grove and everything. I wonder if what has this done to cost? Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I don't, that's just something I think we need to say. And then of course, the question is, how is the city going to get the construction funding? And the leadership committee is really interested in that. And we're going to ask about it every meeting. I mean, and you've got a good schedule. You want to talk about, one other thing.
Let me just say one thing about Jim's question about costs. We are going to get every penny we can for the 35 million. We're going to get every single thing we can out of the 35 million. We're going to squeeze every penny out of it. So that will involve making something that actually costs more than 35 million to start with, and then getting it to fit. Because if we inch up to it the other way, we're going to leave things on the table. Okay, so the first cost estimate is not going to be 27 million. Okay, it will probably be high intentionally on our part because, as we like to say in the office, buy it, and then we'll because you don't really know where certain costs are going to come in, what the construction manager is going to say. You know, in one area, people put down beautiful concrete less than they make asphalt. You know, you never know what's going to happen. Things happen that are crazy. So it
We will make the shoe fit.
ultimately fit
Yes.
perfectly, and you'll get the best value you can out of that money.
And that first cost estimate, Jim, is coming in a month's time. We'll have our first
Good. All
touch
right.
point about that.
One other thing, Kate, I wanted to mention is I think we need maybe to talk about, I don't think you can promote let's go to the plaza and play area. We need a name or something for our play area where you go into some place at Dix Park. I mean, as we look at our marketing campaign, you know, where do you want to go? I don't think we want to say, I want to go to the plaza and play area. I want to go to.
Really catchy.
But you like, yeah. I want to go to Matt's playhouse. Right, but I hope we think about what are we going to call this first phase?
Important. Yep.
Okay. That's it, Kate. Thank you.
I'm glad you got your list. We're all seeing your piece of paper, Jim.
Oh, excuse me. All right.
I kept thinking you were trying to show me something on there.
I just want to say, just in closing, thank you for everyone. I think this is really exciting. We're on our way with the Plaza Play. We've got the Creek grants and working on that. This is really good stuff in a time and a year where so much has changed. I think we continue to demonstrate we're making progress in the right ways to create this park that this entire community is hopefully going to fall in love with. So that is a thank you, and also we've got a lot of work ahead of us. Jim, you know, here we go, right? But this is the start of something pretty spectacular.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Matt.
We're done for today. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
Good seeing you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.